Welcome to a new video. In this video, we are looking at some I don't work here lady stories. The first story is called, I don't work here and you will pay for this. This happened back in 2013. The Nursing Council in my country organizes an annual 3-day convention in order to keep us updated to new developments about our profession. It's not mandatory, but it gathers a lot of people for two reasons. The first is that you can present a paper or research you worked on and be considered published. And because they do it in a different city every year. So it's a good way for a vacation. It usually takes place around the middle of May. The tourist season in my country begins in April. For about 2 years, the nurses in the company I work for had combined forces to write a paper about training and educating patients. I was the unlucky one that had to do the presentation. We apply and they give us a spot early on the first day. The convention is held in a very touristy city in a 5-star hotel. I'm staying in another, cheaper hotel. I go in, wearing my dark blue business suit and tie and carry my laptop. I do the presentation, everything goes well, and afterward, I find a classmate of mine from nursing school and decided to grab a coffee. Because she wants to catch a presentation later on, we decided to not leave the hotel and go to the patio where they had a cafe. We're on the patio, catching up and enjoying our coffee in the sun, and generally having a good time. The patio was almost full at that point, mostly with student nurses and people from the convention. The cafe's staff is busy with all the people there. At some point, my friend excuses herself to visit the bathroom and I check my phone. Suddenly, I feel someone looming over me. And then I hear a high-pitched, "Excuse me." I turn my head to see a slightly angry-looking woman staring daggers at me. She looks like a prototypical Karen. The haircut, the expensive clothes that look cheap, and the attitude. She said, "I and my friends are waiting for someone to take our order for 5 minutes." She pointed a couple of tables over where a couple of women in the same subcategory are sitting. I asked confused, "So?" She starts yelling, "So get off your break and come take our order." I said, "I don't think so. You have to wait for one of the servers. I don't work here." But Karen didn't want to hear that. She was leaning towards and getting in my face. "Listen up, you peon. We are paying customers and you're going to do as you're told. The break is over." And with that, she sweeps her arms on the table, spilling the coffees and glasses of water on me, but mostly on the laptop I had next to the table. At that point, I'm furious. I get up and there is a noticeable size difference. She is a dwarf compared to me. "Listen up, you idiot. I don't work here. And even if I did, I wouldn't serve people with your attitude. And if something happened to the laptop, you're paying for it." She screamed, "You dare to threaten me? Me? Do you know who I am?" I said, "No, and I don't care. You're just an entitled idiot." At that point, a lot of people were looking at us and a server was coming over. The servers were dressed in black pants, a white shirt, and a black apron. And Karen decided to try to slap me. I caught her hand as the server came next to us. The server asked, "What is happening here?" And Karen screamed, "Your colleague is refusing to take our order and is threatening me." The server, while taking a look at me, said, "Madam, this man doesn't work here. He is a customer." Apparently, her little brain couldn't compute because she continued foaming until a manager and security appeared. When the manager asked what happened, I replied, "This woman insulted me, deliberately dropped coffee on me and my personal belongings, and tried to attack me. I would like to press charges." The implication of getting the police involved started another rant by Karen. How she would sue me and the hotel and how we should respect our betters. You know, lovely stuff. The aftermath was that I pressed charges and Karen was kicked out of the hotel. I don't know what happened to the rest of her clique. The laptop was ruined as the bag's zipper was slightly open and all the coffee poured directly on the laptop. The hotel offered me a full paid weekend reservation at the time of my choosing. And about a year later, I received a hefty settlement of €3,500 for the incident. The next story is called Dog Daycare. A while back, I was working in an office that allowed dogs. It was an open floor plan. And since customers never came into the office, we kept the dogs' food and water bowls right by the front door just because it was the most convenient space and no one else would see them but us who worked there. Of the 6 of us who worked in the main office area, I was the only one who didn't have a dog. I always felt horribly left out. To make matters worse, across the way was a dog daycare. One day, a very frantic woman came in and she had an absolutely massive basset hound with her. Usually, the only people who came into the office were associates who had appointments with someone working there. But it was rare they brought their dogs. She ran up to me and said, "Do you work here?" And I said, "Yes, how can I help you?" She said, I wasn't sure if you took walk-ins, but I read online I could just drop him off. I tried to call but no answer. I didn't know what she was talking about at that point and I said, come again? Who did you call exactly? Thinking if I could just saddle her off to whoever she came to see, I wouldn't have to decipher her problem. She said, well, it doesn't matter now. Look, something urgent came up and I really need to leave him here. Here's his food he likes and I'll be back in a few hours. At this point, I wasn't thinking of the dog daycare. I thought maybe she was a friend of someone here. I said, well, alright, can I get your name, please? And she said her name and then asked if I needed her to sign anything, and I was so confused at this point. I just said, why would I need you to sign something? And she left almost immediately. So I took Otis, the dog, to the back and showed him to my co-workers. No one knew the woman or dog. I was worried she wouldn't come back, but at the same time, my wish for an office dog had been granted. And Otis was supremely chill. All he did all day was lie around and drool onto his own ears. I just freshened him up every now and then, took him out every couple of hours, and he was happy as a clam on a big cushy dog bed we thankfully had an extra of. He just loved the attention from anywhere he could get it. At the end of the day the woman, thank God, came back. She said, thanks, you're a lifesaver. How was he? And I said, he was a champ. I was about to say, but why is he here, when she said, that's a relief. Most say he gets anxious around other dogs. I heard you operated at a much higher capacity. I was thrilled to see you had so few clients in the room at one time. So, how much do I owe? And that's when I realized she thought we were a dog daycare. Now, I probably should have corrected her. But I loved my day with the office dog and I did want to get paid for supervising this strange dog all day. I just threw out the number that sounded fair and appropriate. That'll be $20. She replied, really, in this very high tone, and I couldn't tell if I'd overshot or undershot. But she paid me and left. My co-workers were laughing hysterically when they realized what had happened and we thought it would just be a good story for the future. But the next week, she came back. She said we were so much more affordable and less overcrowded than the other place that she was happy to use us. I was glad for the company, so just took him. I didn't think there was any way she couldn't have at least some idea we weren't a dog daycare. The whole ordeal was so strange I just figured, don't question a good thing. I was much younger and dumber then. Not long after, Otis started getting dropped off too, sometimes even 3 or 4 days a week. I was in heaven, he was such a love. And he made fast friends with the delivery guys and visitors. One day, we took our office Christmas card photo and Otis was over that day, so we included him, in a Santa hat. It was pretty great. But it turns out that Otis' owner was friends with one of our clients who I guess happened to have the card out on her table or was kind enough to display it alongside her other holiday cards. Because one day, Otis' owner came in holding the card and walked up to me. She asked, I can't even believe I'm asking this, but is that my dog in this photo? This isn't a dog daycare at all. This is just an office, isn't it? She said it with a note of surprise, as though she was looking around and putting it all together for the first time. She was like, then who are all these other dogs? And I explained. I was terrified she was going to demand her money back, or worse, take some sort of legal action against us for misrepresenting ourselves as a dog care business or complain to corporate. Instead, she basically said, why didn't you ever say anything? And I explained we just really liked having Otis around. She stopped for a minute and seemed to be thinking and said, is that right? And I said yes and told the story of how I was the only one in the office without a dog, so I loved the company. She seemed a little hesitant, understandably, because the whole thing was so weird. She turned to my coworker and asked if I was telling the whole truth. I don't know why she thought my coworker, also a stranger to her, was any more trustworthy than me. My coworker backed me up. So she said, well, I wish you'd said something sooner. Could have saved me a lot of embarrassment with my friend back there. All right, I have to get going. See you at 4. And with that, she left Otis. I couldn't believe it. I said, so he can stay? And she replied, where else could I find someone to watch him one-on-one all day for $20? And off she went. Otis stayed my office dog until his family moved away. Luckily, right around the same time, I took a new job. The last story is called, You Should Have a Talk with My Boss. This happened last weekend. While I was only involved from the sidelines, I was there through the whole thing. I went to my local blue big box store to pick up a few grocery items. Not a big trip, but it had to be done. Now, I'm a short woman. And it never ceases to amaze me that most of the things that I want or need are always on a top shelf from my limited point of view. The only way that I can reach these items is if I have something long enough to rake it off the top shelf, or I use the shelves as a climbing wall. Considering that I am not a lightweight by any stretch of the imagination, I don't try climbing in favor of keeping the shelves upright. I swung down an aisle and found what I was looking for on the top shelf. Since the item was in a glass bottle, raking it off the shelf seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. I stood there for several minutes trying to decide if this was something I could do without when I spotted a very tall guy. He had his own shopping cart and was not dressed like a store employee. He was looking at his shopping list, so it was clear that he was not an employee. But my interest was in the fact that he was very tall. So I approached him and said, "I'm sorry to bother you." The tall guy had this look on his face like he's ready to say, "I don't work here, lady." But he just asked, "Yes?" I tried making myself as meek and apologetic as I could so that he didn't think he had encountered one of those people. I asked, "Can I borrow your height to help me get something off the top shelf?" He grinned, nodded, and asked what he could get for me. I pointed at the item and without so much as a struggle, he retrieved it. I smiled politely and thanked him profusely for helping me. I put the item in my cart and he started to walk away. Then she made her presence known. She was about taller than me and had on heels that were easily 5 inches high. She was around 45 years old, pudgy rolls around the middle, and wore a blue sparkly dress that was at least 3 sizes too small and so short if she took a deep breath, we'd all get a view of her belly button. She honestly looked like she was going to a nightclub, not grocery shopping at 1 in the afternoon. She said, "Now that you are finished with her," she said this while looking down at me as if I smelled like a week-old fish, "you can get these for me." Karen attempted to hand the tall guy her shopping list. But he put his hands up and backed up a bit. He said, "I don't work here. I was only helping to get something." Karen said, "Exactly. You helped her and now you'll help me." I swear she batted her eyelashes at him. He said, "No, I helped her and now I am going to finish my own shopping." Karen rolled her eyes and tried to shove her list at him. "I'm not stupid. Of course, you work here. Why else would you help her?" He said, "Do you really believe that people who work for a living are only working to serve you?" Karen couldn't decide if she should nod or shake her head. I could almost hear the gears in her brain strain for a response. "It's your job to do what I tell you to do." He said, "No, it's my job to do what my boss tells me to do, and not once in 14 years has my boss ever told me I had to do your shopping." Karen didn't like what she heard. "Oh, yes, it's your job. You work here, so you work for me and I am telling you to get these items on my list, now." He stepped closer to her, reached in his shirt pocket where he had his white clerical collar, snapped it on, and plastered on the biggest grin. "In that case, you need to get down on your knees and talk to my boss. I think the two of you have plenty to discuss." Karen's face went white. She ran. Well, she took very fast shuffling steps out of the aisle. I just stood there with my mouth open. The tall guy removed the clerical collar and tucked it back in his shirt pocket. He saw my amazement and adoration of what he'd just done and grinned. "Oh, don't look so impressed. I'm not clergy. I do improv comedy with a small social group of friends." He patted his shirt pocket. "This week's theme is church. I just came to get snacks on my way there." I said, "Now, I'm more impressed. I so want to be like you when I grow up." The tall guy and I parted ways and I didn't see him or Karen again. For some reason, however, I have this strange desire to watch stand-up comedy on TV. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye-bye.